Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that means it's time for another Warhammer Weekly. Back at you once again with my own little point system. It's Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Hey everybody, I am back, and it's good to be back.
Tom, one of my three ways to play. There you go. How you doing, Tom? The less
That's
preferred method.
super awkward.
Isn't it,
Thanks,
though?
Vince.
Absolutely. All right, so also joining us, the one, the only, making the circuit this week, hot from Andy and Rem's show yesterday, it's MC1Gamer. Mitch, how you doing, sir?
I'm tremendous.
Absolutely. We're starting off with that's good. You got to get the catchphrases in
Drink.
every time you can. There you go. I like it. Okay. So, you know what? We're not going to waste time with a lot of preamble. Let's be honest. This might be the biggest news week since the launch of Age of Sigmar itself.
No. This is bigger than End Times.
It's
Like
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Like this news week, it's off the hook. So let's get started.
Go
Obviously, we're not going to bury the lead. The big news this week is the General's Handbook. And all of the information around the General's Handbook. So for those of you guys that have been asleep, not that General's Handbook, a different General's Handbook.
It's not a re-release of the General's Compendium, the circa 2002
Not the
campaign
6th
book.
edition.
That's an awesome book, by the way.
It is an awesome book.
It's
This
still
is
valid.
great.
It still works.
Which let me also point out that book was also one of the, I think the last time that they, or one of the last times, that they also had a player interacted like involvement in the formation of the material. I don't know if you know that or not, but that actually had some public playtest as well.
Yes.
And some public interaction. So
You don't think it's accidental that they decided to name it something that's clearly reminiscent of that, do you? Or that this happens to have a bunch of linked scenario play and advancement and multiplayer scenarios and other things you're about to talk about. You don't think that that's just a coincidence, do you?
No. AOS is clearly failing in that they've just sporadically come up with a point system and oh wait, no. That's actually no, this stuff takes lead time and this is likely part of the plan. I'm sorry for all the haters out there. This was likely again, I pointed this out on one of the forums. Somebody was bitching about this. The reality is that we had news of this upcoming point system last August. Let me point that out. On the other side of the cons, from the Forge, or not from the Forge World, from the GW booth, we knew something like this was coming.
Okay,
I'm
what
just
was
going to
what was
this
what was
book
the
for the
hint?
rest of the show because it's really good. I hope that's fine with everybody. I'm sure you can handle this. Okay.
What was the hint?
Totally. That they do have a point system in development. It's just not ready yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the discussion. Like that was the literal news item we reported on the other side of that.
Right.
We were all spitballing and speculating on so many things that were rumors. I've gotten rumors from what I consider reliable channels. Those guys were getting coals and boxes, and I've already told them. By the way, one of them, and I mentioned this on the show yesterday. One of them, I was getting just tons of messages while I was dropping off my son, and I went and I sent a message to one of the guys, and I said, did you realize that they released points? And he told me, and he called me a liar. He said you're a fucking liar. And he was the guy I was getting info from. I said you're fired, man.
So would you like to see the actual book?
Yeah. Let's see the little shot of it.
There
They
you
had it
go.
on Facebook.
The little picture.
The little picture.
Isn't it
The
cute?
littlest picture.
It's so cute.
Yes.
Okay, so it was pointed out to me by one of our viewers and a friend of the show in an email that this was posted by the tag name Scanner on Bowls.
Okay.
Okay, and supposedly this is where a lot of our other leaks are coming from. So I'm gonna out GW and just say that this is a very, very thinly veiled leaking that they're doing, naming their account Scanner, and then when this drops, making it public.
Sure.
Just saying, GW, we got your number. Okay. So in this book that's coming this summer, let's do content first. It's going to be a book for everyone, playing how you want to. 3 ways of play are going to be detailed. Open, which is basically what we already have. The campaign system, which is reminiscent of, is it Blood in the Badlands?
Yeah.
So that had a 5 different, but this one's going to have 5 different campaign systems in the book. Build your own games and campaign around a story. These are going to at least one of these campaign systems is going to actually like pair or combine with match play, which is the point system. Supposedly there'll be a Path to Glory, which is kind of like the advent calendar for like making a general and building your force and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's going to actually include the actual original Path to Glory that came
Oh,
out.
is it really?
Yeah, that's going to be one of them.
Yep.
And then it will vary from, it'll go from small skirmish games all the way up to big armies. They'll have rules for multiplayer and team games, point values for every war scroll and battalion. And then that goes into the match system, which will be different point totals and battle sizes in the book. Standard size is going to be 2,000 points, which is going to be about a 2.5-hour playtime, is what they reported. And they're going to go to like a true point system and try to keep it to reminiscent of prior Warhammers. And the book contains 22 battle plans, 6 pitched battles, and 160-ish pages. And apparently it is at a good price. Now, as
Wait, so
amazing,
what's a good price? Is it a good GW price?
Comparable to what we've been seeing.
So Ben Curry from the Bad Dice podcast is the one who mentioned the price, and he said it'll be reasonably priced as per the better priced books we've seen come out recently. I don't know what that like. So I would assume that means, somewhere in the range of the Grand Alliances.
At 160 pages, you're probably looking at a $30 price tag, a $25 to $30.
Whatever the price tag is, this is the next Bible of Warhammer. This is the new Big Red Rule Book. Everyone will buy it. I don't care what your thoughts are on this. I don't care what your feeling is about points, about open play, or whatever it was. If you're playing Age of Sigmar, you're going to get this book.
Yeah, I think so. And as amazing as this sounds. Oh, and by the way, notice that we know this 3 months in advance.
Absolutely. I want to take a minute to put a pin on that.
Yeah.
This is just an unbelievably different GW than we're dealing with right now. And we've seen it over and over again. I've said it 100 times. I'll say it again. They've clearly released. They said they brought these guys in. They brought in Heel and Hammer and Bad Dice and Based Hammer a month ago, and then this week said, yeah, sure, release a podcast, talk about it, share some details. Talk about your time here. Share pictures of you playing the games, hanging out with Jervis Johnson, right? Being on the table. Talk about what you talked to us about and what we did and how we acted. And know this book is coming 3 months in advance. What?
Like the Cylons, they clearly have a plan and they're working it.
You stole mine. Look, wait, let me tell you. When they do the invites for the YouTubers community, I want to be invited to that damn slumber party, man.
We're not getting an invite.
I know we're not.
We're not. I'm just gonna get that out there. As Vince
we're on the wrong
said, not in addition to that, we perform our best at a sea level. Like that's what you can expect from us.
Just mediocrity every show. That's what we're aiming at.
But let's just respond a little bit in awe of how cool it was to hear the details for these guys that were invited. How awesome that would have been, and it must have been great. That's in your gaming life. That's just the apex right there. That's pretty.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's certainly up there. Like I can't imagine. Like it is beyond kind of conception what happened there. Yeah.
So let's dig on this. Not that we all wouldn't love to go have a sleepover at GW. I agree. I'm sure everybody would. But look, it'd be like I picture it somewhere between Home Alone and Gremlins 2. But at any rate, the question is, what do we think? Like, let's just. There's been plenty of videos about the points, and everybody's talking about it. If you're watching this, we're probably the 6th video you've watched talking about points. So I honestly don't want to talk about it so much. I want to give our summation opinions, like just what we think about it. Is it what do you think? High level. Mitch, start us off, buddy. You're the guest.
Sure, I'll try to be brief.
Please do.
I'll start off with the good. The good is great. Okay, the good is fantastic. We cannot. Just like you had just mentioned, how we're seeing such a new look GW, where we're getting things in advance, where they're reacting to the community, they're starting to listen to things the community's saying, and the idea that this game is going to be more supported. We're hearing rumors already that it is pretty successful already. This is going to take it to a whole new level. And I don't know how legitimate some of those rumors are. Certainly, I agree that it's more successful than I can believe than Warhammer Fantasy. The fact that I'm hearing rumors that it's on par with 40K, that would shock me. I don't know how strong that one is. But let's just imagine, what this all means. A huge influx or return of more people that may not have looked at Age of Sigmar before will give it a new look. And what does that mean when it comes to the bottom line, which is what GW is all about? More support, more releases, more source books, more armies, more models, more of everything, more people that you can possibly play with when you walk into a store. The openness and the more uniformity of play styles so that it's easier to find partners to match up with. Whatever format you play, whatever play is dominant at the local store level. Those are all great things. There are some detractions. I am concerned that maybe that openness and that open ear also could lead to knee-jerk reactions as a result of the louder voices that don't always necessarily represent the community as a whole. It really just usually can represent the louder people in the community, and those tend to be the people who are the nitpicky people. It also opens up a whole floodgate for, and I mentioned this in my video, and by the way, I'm not going to hash over all the things that I said in my video. Go look at the video. Go look at all the people's videos that talked about points. But, suddenly you allow people, or you not allow, but you give people that forum, and the floodgates come in. And then when they don't get what they want, then there's the backlash. There's invariably going to be people that are just going to get pissed about things, and then the backlash will go against things that GW does when they're not listening to every little thing the community says. But that's fear. That's fear. I want to look at positive. The positive of this is that the future is very bright, and we've got to try to. We have to see. We haven't the book in our hand even, and we haven't even play tested it and dissected it. So I'm encouraged. Overall, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see how it unfolds, and I'm glad that I jumped on board with Age of Sigmar early on, even though the game is going to probably be a lot different than the way I imagined it, envisioned it. I wish that they had waited another year, but hey, if I was so smart, then I'd be running a multi-million-dollar company.
Good thoughts. And you did keep it relatively brief. I'm very proud of you.
Relatively.
Way to go, man. All right. It's thumbs up. Tom.
Okay. So I'm really positive about this. Like I could not be more positive about this. Like it's.
You haven't watched Paul Conti's video yet, I bet, but I bet you're in the same campus.
Clearly, no, I haven't. Say what?
I bet you're in the same campus as him. Continue.
Yeah, like this is a true like holiday miracle. Like I don't know what the holiday is. It's like GW Day or something. But the fact of like the on the level of communication, on the points, on the everything that's happening here. Like this is all a magical moment that we need to just sit in, and the trajectory. What's more important to me than anything is the trajectory of what this like. We also had like a 20-some page fact drop this week, like an FAQ. Let's think about that. Like it's amazing. Okay, so here's my concern. If we are going to do true competitive play, we are either like no matter which way they go down. I see that there's going to be a division in however they decide with regard to an aspect of the rules. And that's measuring and basing. Okay? And so a decision's going to have to be made, and no matter if you measure from the base or measure from the model, there's going to be problems with each. And I hope they say something as simple as measure from the base, use the bases that, by default, use the bases that came with the model, be reasonable. Like, I hope that it's something as simple as that. Measuring from the model, I think, opens up a bigger can of worms. But we'll see. I mean, they seem to be committed to it. Yeah. So that's what I would say. Is that I think that both are going to open up a can of worms, and that they're going to have to commit to one of them and run with it.
Well, the word is that we're getting that the core rules are not changing. So it would be a fundamental change if they moved from measured from the model to measure from the base. That would be something that would be a big turnaround. Now, again, they've made other turnarounds, so clearly it's very likely that we could see some drastic changes. But the rumors are that the core rules are going to be they're still going to be in play throughout all the systems with some modifications that things like match play will have. Good.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. If we are measuring from the model, that demands that that models be put on other models' bases.
Which is a bad solution.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if we are measuring from the model, that is the only solution that works. Because some of these pie play bases. No, like, but yeah, again, some of these pie play bases, like, you won't get people in range otherwise.
For the big models, yes, that's going to be the problem. Which they could be just one of those special cases, or it could be that gentleman's agreement. Hey, don't put your shit on my base. When you get up to my base, I'll give it to you. Which is going to be something that you're going to have to say. But it sounds like when it comes down, when we look at the FAQ, when we look at some of the rumors of what's going to be involved in this more structured play, the match play, if they're sticking to the core rules and just having an overlay onto it with a point system and army building structure, then that probably will stay intact. And if it doesn't,
okay, well, let me just say one thing before I hand it over. Is that imagine a scenario where you fly in with Archeon and you charge, okay? And you charge into a big cluster of goblins. You have to pick up all of those goblins off of the battlefield and move them onto Archeon's base as part of his charge. And hold on.
It gets worse.
And yeah, and it gets worse when he piles in.
And it gets worse when you want to move Archeon.
And if he decides to retreat, he's going to fly away, and you're going to have to pile them all off again.
Yeah,
okay.
I agree.
Here's the deal. In a highly competitive environment, that is a nightmare, both of time and of like standing on bases and a bunch of other bullshit. So
I agree.
What I would say is that like this, like measuring from model to model and putting models on bases is going to be a nightmare in a truly competitive environment. So we'll see, is what I would say.
I would say this. I'm more than happy to go and revert to a base-to-base type situation if that would be the easier solution, if they had a flexibility and not a hard and fast rule, even in the tournaments that are bound, even in the circuits that are bound, because if they had here's the guidelines, but yeah, if you keep close, be reasonable, don't be jerk about it, don't put a single model on a 100 mil round, don't put a gigantic figure on a 40 mil round. If you have something reasonably close, then that's fine. I could see that being totally cool.
And they could still measure the model if they said or to the base. So if the model is stretched out beyond the base, you measure the model or to the edge of the base. Like that would also be a reasonable like middle ground.
It seems like that flexibility is probably going to be in there somewhere.
Yeah, we'll see. Obviously, it'll be up to TOs, but it's just something that I am cognizant of.
Me too.
Yeah. Anyways, so Vince, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sure.
Points.
So much hay has been made of this. Here's my opinion. You ready? I don't know. I'm not trying to be a unique snowflake, but I haven't heard anybody else that's had this opinion. My opinion is, yeah, that all sounds cool. Neat. That's it.
If you take that stance on everything, man, there won't be a show.
Look, here's the reality.
No, that's why I'm around.
Yeah, I mean, here's the reality. One, you haven't seen the book, so you don't know what's in it. You don't know exactly what it has, how good it is. That's one. So always reserve judgment. That's just common sense. Two, as far as like bases or this, good Lord, you're 2 steps ahead on trying to predict problems. You know what I have belief in? People, generally, like that we've all figured this out despite never having an official basing system for 8 editions of exact sizes and all that kind of crap. We somehow managed to have good games of Warhammer even in tournaments, and TOs managed to fill the gap, and common sense ruled the day. Wow, shocker. We all had great games, and it was super fun, and life somehow went on. And it wasn't like because one of us played Archaon, the world suddenly imploded and formed a black hole because we couldn't figure out how to attack him with goblins. I'm pretty sure we'll somehow use our vast intellects to cut the difference. Okay? Like, you just came up with 3 solutions right now. I have to believe that when the entirety of the gaming populace turns their laser-sharp attention on this issue, somehow consensus will be reached. And 3, okay, is that, like, as far as worries of, like, you know, the one particular style of play comes back in or becomes popular or becomes the default or something, good, if that's what happens. Okay, then that's what won in the fair marketplace of ideas. Like, I'm not a communist. I mean, like, I don't mean that in any kind of negative way. I just mean, like, I don't believe in the top-down. The entire problem with this, and the history of the game that we've complained about, is that GW has run this from a top-down thing, saying this is the way you have to play. Them offering legitimate options and saying play in these ways. If that wins in the fair marketplace of ideas, then that's what wins. That's what we wanted. We made the decision. They didn't tell us to do it. We did that. We, the people, spoke and decided this is what we wanted. So I'm not going to complain about that. If my little group wants to play differently, I'll play differently. If they want to play with points or not, great. Then let's do that. Because it sounds like I'm playing a game, which is why I showed up here and bought all these stupid things in the first place. Okay? I didn't buy them because I thought they were worth 6 points. I bought the model because it sounded like a fun game. And I like the way they look, and I'd really like to put those two things together. Okay? So, like, all in all, I literally see no downsides that we don't make for ourselves as a community.
Sure.
They're handing us a bunch of new options. One of the greatest editions of D&D, I will hold you to this forever, is second edition, because it came with a book that just had a crap ton of options for what you could play in there. You could play the game very simple, you could play the game very complicated. It had a ton of optional systems. And you know what happened? Everybody found their way to play that was happy. When you joined a new group, you said, hey, which rules are you using? And yeah, they said these. And you said, cool. And then life somehow went on. Right? It was that much of a discussion. I never had an issue. I played at tournaments. I played at conventions. I played all over the country. Never had an issue. It was a 3-minute conversation. Can
I share a story with you? Can I share a real quick story?
Please.
I've mentioned many a time about a couple of stores that I had frequented in the area where things just completely dried up. One where people played very, very rarely. But the manager was very receptive, but he was a realist. He's running a business. He's got a couple of stores, and if there's just not enough happening, he's got to go and default to where he's making his money, where the players and the people who frequent his store are asking for tables and they need space, and this is the thing that gets pushed out first. And then another one where this guy just. The community dried up. 20 players just completely stopped playing. I did demos for a couple of those guys there. It just wasn't their thing. And fine. The couple of guys especially that tried it, great, wonderful. I respected that. They tried it. Wasn't their thing. They made an educated decision. They didn't just go with what the rumors were or the ragers that were out there saying they went and they gave it a shot and it didn't turn out to be their style. Both those stores, I swear, Facebook. As soon as the whole idea of points that afternoon, I started getting messages from both those managers saying, "Hey, we do demos if you want to run them." And now I have like a lunch next week with one of them to talk about how we're going to schedule that. So that's a real good indication for me about the ultimate upside. The game grows. The game is more commonly played. There's going to be more options to play it. Whatever anybody's interest and feelings are, that's the most important thing. And your attitude, from what you just said, the third point at least, I think is one of the best ones. And hey, if the open market wins, then there's a reason for it.
Yeah. So there you go. That's my opinion on it. Okay. So not that who cares? I'm just an idiot on the internet. My opinion is no more valid than yours. So if you disagree with me, that means you're just as correct as me, or maybe more so. What else we got in the news, Tom?
Okay, so let me also handle some of the other stuff that dropped this week. I mentioned in kind of our discussion the FAQ dropped. I just want to point out that you can go read it. We did a whole video on it. We did a special kind of gathering roundtable on Saturday night.
Yes,
but I want to point out
the video down below, so if people want to go watch, we had like a long discussion on the FAQ.
I just want to point out that we did a rules show, Vinny and I did, back in February.
Yes.
And we were right on every single interpretation except for summoning. So, and that was...
Did you fact check that?
I did. So I went back and listened to our show. So wound allocation, unit coherency, both removal and reforming, piling with no rotation, war machines as separate units, like a war machine and crew. The only one was on summoning, even though Vince took the line that they took. Vince appealed in the show to fun and saying he wanted to play the fun way, but he said, but from the raw rules, he said that you're right, that doesn't function. They went with the fun way, not with how the rules actually read. which I am afraid to live in the world where that, if that is ever, if they realize the logical inconsistency of what they've created, but they haven't. So we're gonna live in the fun world for as long as. And again, these tournament rules may fix this. You know, that it may come in and step in, especially if there's a sideboard, or especially if there's like a pool type of system where summoning has to come from. I don't know what that looks like, but yeah.
It's not going to fix the fact that I'm still trying to pass that shoe that I had to eat as a result of being wrong about summoning.
Yeah. You got to boil the water first. That's the key.
Lots of salt.
Yeah. But all that to say, we were right. Okay.
That's the news item, apparently.
Yes, that's a news item. We were right. Okay, so this last week, obviously the Destruction book is dropping this next week. It's all on pre-order. They updated the app already, so you can go look at the War Scrolls. And in our review on Saturday night that Vince is going to link, we kind of dismissed it, like, there's nothing significant here. Well, I started digging through some of those scrolls today. Yeah, that's not true. There's some very significant changes. For example, go do a search for Grots, just Grots, on the GW site. There are 3 separate boxes of miniatures that all just have the name Grots. And completely entire like independent war scrolls with their own unique war scroll that have the exact identical name Grots. So the Moon Clan Grots are just Grots. The Noblar box are just Grots, and the Old Goblin infantry box are just Grots. Same identical war scroll name, completely separate rules on every single one. It's just curious. And then a number of other war scrolls were combined. So, for example, the Night Goblin War Boss had Skarsnik's, all of his rules jammed into the Night Goblin War Boss. So like every Night Goblin War Boss can have a big old squig goblin now.
Nice.
And so there's some interesting changes. Okay, so what do you have here?
What about the ogre bruiser, the butcher?
I didn't look. Yeah, because they brought in the was it Scrag or no? They did something. They combined the rules.
You have the option to bring in a cauldron and have the rules like it was with Scrag.
Yep. Yeah, so they did an interesting thing combining what once was and what is. And so what I'm saying is you guys will need to look through those rules again because there are actually some pretty significant changes. For example, Night Goblin Fanatics, the Moon Clan Fanatics, can now come flying out of Squig Herders and Squig Hoppers because of the rules change. Anyways, I could go on, but yeah, so there's some interesting implications of the scrolls, so go check them out. Yeah. Vince, what is this screenshot that you have?
Oh, isn't this exciting? So, Black Orc on the left, right?
Size comparison. Awesome.
Iron Jaw, regular Brute, I think is what they're called, right? The standard guy, whatever the normal Iron Jaw guy is. I think he's called a Brute. And the big boss over on the right. Look at that guy. He's huge. That dude is big.
This looks like the orc version of the evolution chart.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. So there you go. That's Tom. I know you're always such a fan of size comparisons. So when I knew we had to have it on the show.
Like looking at that, yeah, that happened.
Mm-hmm. As I've said, if there's any army where it makes sense, it's this army.
Agreed.
Yeah. Tom, we have to do an unlocking show about destruction.
We can do that. It eats my soul, but we can do that. Okay.
There you go. Yeah, super fun. Look at how big that dude is. Allegedly, he's on a 60. I haven't seen him with base yet, but I believe
that would not surprise me at all. I mean, he looks like he would put an ogre to shame.
He's beefy.
Well, he's definitely wider than an ogre. Maybe the tyrant might be comparable in size.
Yeah, that's crazy. And speaking of ogres, the hint next week was flesh, tasty flesh, raw flesh, dead flesh, all will be consumed.
Yeah.
So let's some people have said.
Go ahead.
Good. I was going to say some people have said that it's probably ogres.
I don't think so.
Others have pointed out that it could be the Korgorath, because we don't have the Korgorath yet, and that's kind of the Korgorath's thing is consuming flesh for Khorne.
I heard a rumor that it might be a new sculpt for zombies, which would shock me. Cause
I don't believe it. I
no,
love it.
it would,
I love it for our all zombie Holy Havoc army.
no, it would piss me off. I have 120 damn zombies that I'm painting, and no way am I buying any more.
I mean, yeah, it could be any of those. I don't know. I'd love to see like a ghoul-based. There's no ghoul-based starter box right now, right? There's a skeleton one and a ghosty one. So I'd love to see like a ghoul-based.
Yeah, but do ghouls eat dead flesh? Like I think the ogres are the ones that eat will eat all flesh.
Good point.
I mean, I thought ghouls ate any flesh. I wasn't aware that they were on some sort of strict paleo diet or something.
Yeah, no, that's why they don't consume themselves.
Oh, is that a thing?
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, that's a thing. Yes, they are not like auto cannibal, auto. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I'm looking for a technical term there.
Make one up.
I
Auto
will say
erotic
it tells
is
me
not
that it's
the right
something
term.
of Sigmar. That doesn't sound like a 40k thing, but who knows?
I'd love it. I'd love it if it was ogres. That would be great.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it was ogres. I'll say that. Like, I would not have seen that coming.
It would shock us all. But then it's just been one shock after another. Just hits to the body blows. All right.
No, it's true. Okay. And then there's we have two competing rumors that have been out this week.
I love these.
About the current state of AOS. Vince, do you want to go over the two camps?
Yeah, let me see if I can sum these up. So I truly love everything about this rumors, and this is the point of why I say like you've got to take all rumors with a grain of salt. Mitch, you actually made mention of this in a video.
Anything you hear from Bowles or Fayette 212, just really suspicious eye before anything else. Do not buy in. It's April Fool's Day every day there.
Sure. So we had Hastings drop a rumor that basically said Warhammer Fantasy Battle was making a small profit before End Times, but not as much as people wanted, and that more or less they cut it, they made this big move, it was totally moronic, blah, 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 and now they're backtracking because sales of AOS are poor. Okay. So, I mean, that's the condensed version. The too long didn't read. At the same time, like within a day, we had a rumor from the Insider drop, okay, which said that there's a lot of different elements to his rumors, one of which I really want to get to because it's my favorite thing in the universe. But that AOS has bigger sales than Warhammer Fantasy Battles did for a long time. He didn't actually say it's competing. He said it's up there, like the exact line from him was, it's up there with 40K for sales and interest. And that could mean a wide delta, but because I don't know what interest means. You understand what I'm saying? Like, okay.
Like
he never said it was making as much money or anything like that. Which it's not. I don't care how good it is. It's not. I went to Adepticon. I saw the 40K hall. I saw the Age of Sigmar games. I mean, maybe it's the super casuist game around and no one's going to the hall. That could be. But the 40K hall had 10 times the number of tables. I'm just saying. There was a rocky start, but they expected it, blah, blah, blah. But basically, everything is great. It's super awesome. We're going to talk more about kind of the narrative things because the narrative, he mentions the narrative system. He says it looks super cool, that you can have your own warlord and carve out your own territory in the 9 realms, which, by the way, if it is like this General's Compendium that it's aping the name of, that is exactly what it will let you do. Because one of the things you did in here, in this book, was have a map and take over territory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a thing in here, and it was awesome. I've done that campaign a couple times, and it was super fun. So I would love to see that come back.
Yeah, I did a run at the one of the local stores for 8th edition. We're using that book, it wasn't my campaign. I participated in it. It was one of the earlier videos when I first started doing YouTube, and it was amazing fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, oh my goodness, the ability to do that, to have a map to take over, like, have territory and build that up, yeah, sweet, I'm in. I'm so in.
It's like Total War.
Absolutely. And so then that's, so basically we got these two completely opposite views. Just don't believe either of them and keep on. Like, that's the answer. If you're having fun, great. If not, okay too. You're going to believe the narrative that you like, right? Like, that's what that boils down to. But my favorite rumor in the insider's post was the following. This is so good. Here you go. I'm going to read this verbatim since I copied it. Tomb Kings and Bretonnians, as well as many missing units like War Dancers that were mentioned by name, seems that folks love those deadly dancers of pointy-eared doom, are not gone, parens, or quotes rather, sorry, not parentheses, quotes, finger quotes, but will be redone and re-released in a new shiny form sometime later. Okay, here's why I love this rumor. I love it to death. Because the eternal spirit of the Bretonnians will never die. Like, this army is the army of the future that is always on the horizon. It's been this re-release that's been promised forever. I just love it.
We're waiting in Pelennor Fields for them to come riding over the hill.
It's so great. Absolutely. It's just fantastic. By the way, Q&A is on, and certainly if anybody has questions, start popping them in. I noticed some people popped in some stuff already. Let me hit a couple people like that. James Squire, Star Mini Gaming, says, why is Mitch worried about the loudest people? There's no one louder than him. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. No, it's just that my voice carries a lot further than his.
Scott R. mentioned that the Black Orcs are Ard boys. Are now, yeah, I think they became Ard boys, not Black Orcs. I think that's what you're saying, Scott. And yes,
yeah, whatever.
They had a name change.
It doesn't matter.
He also said, I've never played a game where change didn't come with whining. Yeah, boy, is that true. Like, yep, every game ever.
And the whining didn't have much effect.
James clarified that ghouls do eat dead things. It's in the novels. Ha! There we go. I don't know. They don't eat each other because they all smell like ghouls. Who knows?
Lies.
It's a ghoul pact.
Get it like back. Never mind.
Yes, indeed. And Scott says he was hoping that he said it's disappointing. Points like old. I was hoping for something new in selecting a force. Well, maybe it is. Like my point is that yes, they said 2,000 points, but like I don't know what that means. Like,
let me point out also that something that we didn't report that was actually reported in the podcast is that like there does seem to be some creation of categories, like force org categories.
Right.
Of infantry heroes, monsters, and war machines.
Like the keywords that exist.
Yeah, the keywords and some amount of some numbers of those things.
So we could be looking at a couple different things. Again, I'm not gonna the reality is trying to jump ahead and be like, oh, this is definitely what's going on or this is gonna be bad. It's just with this level of information, you're just shooting in the dark.
Yeah, the thing that would concern me is if they backtrack on battalions that allow you to do some things that you couldn't do in, for instance, 8th, where you were limited to war machines and numbers of monsters, and Age of Sigmar gave you that freedom, where you even have war scrolls that say, take 3 dragons, take 5 giants. If that stuff suddenly becomes invalid, that would concern me. If it's just a point structure that allows you to have all of these war scrolls, all of these battalions, but they're creating some way for the people who want balanced play, then, you know, I don't think it's that big of a deal, and I wouldn't be overly concerned. But we'll find out in a few months, right?
Indeed we will. Indeed we will. All right. So that's basically those two rumors. Super fun. I love them. But wait, there's more.
No, it's true.
It just keeps coming. The Forge World thing, another big one.
Yeah, Forge World's another big one. So basically, there's a rumor that, that Forge World, they're moving the production facilities, or they're sorting out some new casting machinery. So there are going to be delays in the immediate future, but the result, long term, is that they're going to be able to produce higher volumes, which is one of the big hiccups that we've run into with getting Forge World stuff into GW stores, is because they couldn't actually meet the demand. Like they couldn't do the supply for something like that, is what I had been told by a GW individual. And so maybe this could change that.
Well, I think it's certainly going to be required as they spin up specialist games, right, and start re-releasing that stuff. They're going to need to be able to produce on a really, really large scale, especially if they in-house the Lord of the Rings stuff too, and you know, because they openly posted and said, hey, we're going to be doing some stuff with that. We're pretty excited. So I mean, you know, there's a lot on their plate. They're going to have to be able to really move quick. So yeah, there you go.
So that's exciting.
It is, and hopefully that also means cheaper to ship too. By the way.
Yeah. Oh. Yes.
Like I'd love to see the supply chain actually tightened up to where you're not paying ridiculous shipping costs. So.
Yep.
I'd also love to see Forge World bring some fantasy stuff to the booths when they come to conventions. It's all just tanks. Jeez, I swear.
When you went to Adepticon, I was gonna have you pick up some of the Goblin stuff for me, and I reached out to Forge World and I said, "Hey, are you guys gonna have this there?" And they're like, "No." And he was like, "You can pick up one of the forms and just order it." And I was like, "Yeah, no thanks." Like,
I looked, yeah. It's all like I mean, duh. It's the most popular stuff. And by the way, that place had a line like every day, all day. But yeah, it was all like I'm not trying to be mean to anybody playing 40K, but yes, it's all like it's the standard stuff, like the special tanks and the big Titans and stuff like that. Barrett said I would be really surprised if they get rid of battalions as they're like formations in 40K, and those are really popular and good for sales. They've said they said
they would point them, right?
Correct. Yeah, Ben mentioned in the podcast that those will have points as well. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
So I know the last piece of news, and I want to take this one if that's okay, because an additional thing to talk about it. So for those people who are interested, like this is such a big week. It's crazy. Get this announcement for Games Workshop, and what else? The Ninth Age. The Ninth Age is hitting its 1.0 in 3 days. It'll be the 30th. If you're not already following the Ninth Age on Twitter, I would recommend you do. It's just at the Ninth Age. If you search them up, you'll find them because they're always tweeting out stuff and keeping you updates, and they're doing their road to 1.0. And so the 30th 1.0 drops. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people talking about that. It's super exciting. Obviously, this is the end of a very long road that they themselves went on. Almost a year long of them going down this road to make this system. Obviously, we're very supportive of it because it is a community-driven effort by a lot of people doing a lot of amazing work. If you're interested in that style of game that more hews closer to the old world and your experience, but is more cleaned up and balanced and has had a lot of love and care put into it, then this is the game for you. So go check that out. We are going to, and I just got the confirmation before this show started, next week's show is going to be all about the Ninth Age. We're going to do a complete Ninth Age show, top to bottom, and we're going to have at least one. I'm hoping a couple. We're trying to get some schedules arranged. It's difficult because everybody's in Europe, but members of the rules team come on and actually talk about their experiences. So we've got a lot of great. We've already talked some about what we were going to talk about and stuff like that. So I'm very excited about that show. So if you're a Ninth Age person, make sure you tune in next week. It's going to be a definite fun show to celebrate 1.0. All right, my goodness. Did we get through all the news?
Yeah. This was a big week. It was a big week.
It really was.
I got a piece of news.
Uh-oh.
This is a quick one. The Gamer Grunts guys, who I'm still affiliated with, just so you know, I'm doing the tremendous damage thing also, but the Gamer Grunts I'm still working with closely. So Gamer Grunts is going to be the official Age of Sigmar organizer for Crossroads. And we are working on a series of tables. We're looking to have 20 themed tables, one for each realm, and then beyond that for various scenarios. So there's a fleet of people that are going to be working on getting that going. So if people are looking to go to Crossroads, look us up if you're an Age of Sigmar person.
If you're a Britney Spears fan and you really love her celebrated movie Crossroads, make sure you help them out. Go to that tournament. I'm just saying.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I do have one more piece of news that I have two more pieces of news.
Oh my god, It just keeps happening. It's happening right now. Okay, go.
And these are official news pieces. These aren't just random happenstance things. GW has another contest out, people.
Oh, that's
and
right.
And it's one that the American can actually compete in. And you're gonna and so if you have to purchase $85 worth of material from the website. And then when you do that, you can submit a short 500-word essay that of your dream army. And if you do, then and they're going to pick 3 of those worldwide. And to those individuals, they're going to award a complete tabletop scenery Realm of Battle bundle, an entire hobby bundle, which is all their paints and everything that you would ever need to paint, and like $3,300 or $2,300 worth. I think it's $3,300 worth of product.
Wow. Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
And it's only $85. You know, think about it. The Get Started boxes are $85. Some monsters are more than $85. If you're going to buy one of the major characters, it's more than $85. If you buy Bloodthirster is more than $85. You can spend $85. And excuse me, but you have to write a 500-word.
Yeah, then you have to write a college admissions essay.
Right.
I love it. I love the idea of sticking an essay on this. What a fantastic barrier of entry. And it's the White Dwarf team that's going to review the essays to choose, right? Like, it's not like pick out of a hat.
I think they said they're going to get published.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. I love it. That's great. So many people do stories and stuff like that for their armies. Why not? Like, I think that's fantastic. And that's a crap ton of miniatures. I mean, good God.
Yeah, like, you better come up with an expansive vision that'll reflect $3,300 worth of material.
Well, I do need like 40 more Tomb Sphinxes, so
exactly.
Or not War Sphinxes.
It has to be things that they actually have in stock. That was one of the qualifiers, so you're probably not getting those two things.
I think I'm going to do a Monster Island, like a Godzilla thing, but it's all Forge World monsters.
You can't get Forge World either.
Oh,
sorry.
There you go.
And then the other piece of news is in 3 days the sign up for Holy Havoc is going to drop.
Yes, that is a great piece of news. 2 quick things. One, that contest I believe is only on until the 29th. For the.
So get writing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that ends on the 29th. You'll want to go look. It's on their
2
website.
days.
2 days from now. It started on the 23rd. It goes to, it's like a 7-day contest. This is a small window of people. Like, if you actually do it and write the essay, I've got to imagine there's not a lot of competition out there for you. Like,
only
it's
a couple
small group. That's such a small group. Let's say it's 3,000 people that actually submit the essays. Do you know how small of a group that is? Like, your odds are phenomenally good at that level. 1 in 1,000 is outrageous odds for that winning. Okay?
Yeah.
That makes the average payout $3.30 on that return. I mean, that's the very real math, right?
So it has to be fluffy. It has to be like the story of your.
No, well, they didn't say. They had a couple, like, they had a list of 6 guidance questions to reflect on, like, and a lot of it was like hobby related, a lot of it was conversion related, so a lot of it was like the technical stuff. That said, they didn't say anything that you couldn't do anything narrative related. So I suspect that they are going to choose essays that are compelling. Whatever that looks like, it's going to be something that's going to be compelling.
Yep.
And I think that you can even submit pictures as well.
Wow.
And to return back to the Holy Havoc thing, I'll post the link for that down below. Steve's running an awesome tournament. We're going to get Steve on the show sometime for sure. But it's going to be super fun. And Tom's going to handle our sign-up because I'm too lazy to remember. So we'll be there.
Vince and I will be there, and we will we'll have a table full of miniatures. I can't tell you what that's going to be yet, but it'll be something.
There you go. All right. Will, do you know what the end date is? Am I wrong on the end date? Will said he thinks it's longer. Do you know what the end date is? Because I could swear I saw that at a quick end date. But if somebody can fact check me if I'm wrong, I apologize. All right.
That's it.
News done. All right. Pick of the week. Mitch, what is your pick of the week? Video, podcast, article, something.
We talked recently about terrain. You guys made a whole big, and you actually had the guest on, the infamous, famous, legendary, the terrain tutor. I pick him, and I also pick somebody you might know, Adam Savage from Tested. They put out videos just recently that are very terrain-oriented, which I think is pretty good. Go look at this stuff. One was Terrain Tutor was talking about PVC foam board. And I think that's just going to be something that I will be using. And he just tested. This guy is absolutely phenomenal. If you're not a patron of his, go send him $1 a month, man. He is fantastic. He took this PVC board, and we all know what foam board is, and he was testing it with all different paints and textures and glues, doing the kind of theory and alchemical testing that would save all of us in the hobby. Anybody who's looking to converting or boards or any buildings, whatever. And he's laying the groundwork for all the stuff that I'm sure people are going to be doing thereafter. I'm sure other people have done this, but it was such a service to the community, the kind of things that he does. And for him to share the results and show us what he's done was just amazing. And then I looked at Adam Savage, and he took foam board and he built his childhood home. And I thought that was just amazing. And he did it with he used a couple extra tools, but he did it with an X-Acto knife and a metal measuring tool, a ruler. And he built it to like 1/25th scale or something like that. It was his official. He had plans drawn up, and it just showed with just foam board the kind of terrain, the kind of buildings that you could make. And if he can do that, and look, he's quite gifted. But the fact is, it shows that you really could build out all the terrain you need and use a little imagination. And I thought it was just a phenomenal thing.
That's fantastic. By the way, Will clarified it's May 29th. I'm sorry, I had the wrong. So there you go. Okay.
No, now your odds just went through the floor.
Hey, it's 500 words. That's going to take some time.
You got time to think now. You can really work your story. There you go. All right. Tom, what's your pick?
Yeah, so I would be remiss if we didn't mention this. Our big news item, which was the 3 ways to play, spun out of a beautiful podcast that was released on Monday by Heel and Hammer, and that crew of 3 sets of podcasters. Vince,
Heel and Hammer, Bad Dice Podcast, and Facehammer.
Yeah, and Facehammer, and it's a 45-minute podcast. It's worth listening to. So if you haven't heard it yet, just hearing their journey to Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory.
Mm-hmm.
To cross behind the doors that they've been staring at since their childhood, and to enter into the inner halls of GW, and just all the secrecy and everything that was around it. It is just a worthwhile listen.
My favorite part was when they stopped at the bridge, but I won't give anything else away.
Sure, absolutely. No, I'm totally with you. And yeah, it's a great listen. Obviously, those are great guys. You know, I already was talking to Dan about it and said, well, if you think you're getting out of coming back on the show, you're out of your mind. And so we were already working on trying to get a date to get him back on the show for that, so we can squeeze him for all the juicy details.
Well, and I think we may have another one lined up as well.
Yes, correct. I'm working on a date still. So. My pick of the week, obviously, yes, a fantastic pick. I'll link all 3 podcasts. What I'll say is they're all the same, basically, except Dan did pack some extra stuff. Dan and Wayne have some extra stuff at the beginning and end, but it's really just them reflecting then upon the thing you listen to in the middle. So you don't really need to listen to all 3, but you can if you like, if you feel that that's a thing you want to do. I will actually point out, I was on, if everybody knows Kenny Lowell, Kenny's a great member of the community. He's now over in Europe, and he and Rob do a podcast called Combat Phase, and I was on their podcast over the weekend, and that's episode 142. I'll link that. It was great because we recorded that like the day before, when we knew there was an announcement. Like, we woke up that morning saying in 24 hours there's going to be an announcement, and we recorded that day, so that's Sunday, and then it went up on Monday when we could be wrong right away, because we all guessed, and I was like, there's no way it's a point system, blah, 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 blah. Like, we all purposefully guessed knowing we would be wrong, but it's great. They're awesome guys. We talked through a whole bunch of different stuff around GW and the hobby and just a lot of different things, and so super fun. I was so happy to be on their podcast, and go check it out if you're not already listening to it. I'll link it down below. They do great stuff, and they do more than just Warhammer. They do Warhammer 40K, War Machine Hordes, and what I love is a lot of other games. Just interesting. Rob has a real love of games and playing different, cool, new games that are board games and things that are being kickstarted. So if you're just if you love all types of games, you should be listening to Combat Phase. So there you go. So I will link that down below too. So there you go. All right. I think then that leads us into hobby time. Mitch, what are you working on, buddy?
Well, I picked this up from a viewer, which was really kind of cool because I was looking to get one of these.
Oh, look at that. Hold on, let me lock on you. There you go. You got a little Morngul.
Yeah, but here's the really weird part. Before I got this, I was sculpting my own, and I want to put a side by side. Now, the one I have is a little bit more wire because I haven't filled in the flesh and all the other parts, but I want to put them in. And this was me doing it by eye.
Sure, it's pretty close.
So, just pretty close. So I'm going to paint this buddy up, and I'm going to finish this buddy up, and they're going to have friends. And with the new rules for summoning, or not the new rules, but the corrected rules for summoning, I can summon them in anytime I want.
And they are beefy. Those dudes are rocks.
They've got a little of everything.
Yeah, they are.
And they're scary looking, man. That's the thing of nightmares. Look at that. If anybody doesn't know, it's a Morngul from I'm sure everybody does know, but it's from Forge World.
I knew it. I was going to actually make a comment that when you held that up, it's funny because I waited. As soon as you held that up, I said, I was in my head, I thought James from Star Mini Gaming is going to be very jealous because I know he wants some Mornguls, and he just threw a question out and said, damn it, Mitch, I want a Morngul. Yeah. So there you go. I'm in your head, James. I'm in your head. All right.
James and I will go in together on a Forge World order.
There you go. All right, Tom, what's on your table, buddy? Have dwarves moved off the table yet?
No. Like, I'm highlighting. Like, I'm just doing some highlights. Like, before I finally shuffle them into oblivion, and move on to my next army project. I'm just doing some little highlights here and there.
I'd like to see some close-up, higher resolution pictures of your army because I think you're doing a phenomenal job. It looks amazing.
Thanks.
Well, that's why he doesn't want the higher res pictures when you get close. That's where the lack of detail comes out.
All of it just falls apart.
House of Cards.
No, yeah, absolutely, Mitch. And I may do a video. You had mentioned asking about potentially about like some of the paint scheme stuff. And
yeah.
I have a very simple regimented way. Like it's largely a 3-step paint process on every aspect of the model. So I don't do a lot of glazes. I'm not doing a lot of hard labor. So this is generally I consider my paint jobs a very high quality tabletop paint job.
You've been remiss in putting more content on your channel. So I'd like to see some more
have.
of that.
You're right. You are absolutely right. I have been very busy. So
thank you.
I wasn't even on this show last week.
It's because Paul was on again, and as we know, you've got beef with Paul. That's what we learned. That's the rumor. I'm trying to start a fight.
It's true.
It's like me and Remy.
I got your number, Paul.
On Andy and Remy's show, Remy, the last 2 times I was on, he wasn't there. I was like, what? He doesn't like me? He suddenly doesn't show up. I find out the last second.
What I am working on is another Doom Bull.
I'll
just hold him up here. He was inspired by the new. There we go. Obviously, we've got the new big orc guy coming out, right? And he had that big skull on his shoulder, and I was like, Minotaurs can do that. We can kill bigger things. So there you go. He's in progress right now. I'm happy with how he's coming together. He's gonna have some extra special things going on with him beyond that. But yeah, he's almost done. Should be another. Hopefully, he'll be done tomorrow-ish.
Is that the giant shoulder pad that you showed me?
It's pretty big, right? Like how awesome is that shoulder pad?
That's
Look at that.
huge.
Look at that skull.
That's a weapon in and of itself. He doesn't need the other weapon.
This dude is swole. That's what that says right there. He's beefy. All right. I love working on these Beastmen. They're fun. I just like doing a couple models at a time. They're a fun side project. I never thought I would say that in my life. That is not a thing. If you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would have been like, nope, I don't want to paint a brown army. But no, they're fun. Yes, James said Paul and Tom are actually the same person. That's why they're never together. That could be too. It could be a Mission Impossible 2 masks situation, where it's just like you keep pulling off masks and there's more masks underneath. It's Tom, it's Paul, it's Tom, it's Paul. All right, so let's get to our feature segment of the night. Is everybody ready? Are we ready to do our feature segment?
We didn't do it already?
Yeah, at this point, I almost feel like we could have just called it a day right here. But I wanted to talk about, in all this discussion of points, the issue is nobody's talking about the narrative thing, really, right? And to me, that's the one that's so much more exciting because, as I said, I've played in a couple long-term campaigns, like out of the old General's Compendium, and I loved it, man. It was so much more fun to, build up your units, to have a reason to recruit them, to take territory. When there's some weird thing that happens, but when there's, a literal map, and we just used little symbols, little flags we had on our map, in the garage we were playing in at the time. But when you were losing territory because of losing a fight, it just changes everything about the game, right? And I don't mean it's in the best ways. The level of oh, it's on the line here. You know what I mean? You had to get out your special warlord that you had built up or whatever and fight this fight. It was just so cool. So I thought maybe we'd dive into that and talk about what do we hope to see out of the campaign style. Knowing what we know as of right now, what do we hope to see going forward? What would be our ideal thing? And here's the other thing about this. I don't think that this General's Handbook is the last campaign, right? To me, what we're going to see is more books that are more of these that contain more campaigns. If this one contains 5, they're going to do more of those, right? We're going to get more books with more ongoing campaigns, and obviously they'll keep throwing scenarios at us with all sorts of different win conditions and stuff in the individual books. But I think we'll get more campaign books too, especially because it's just why not? You can make them cheap, and we'll buy them. I buy them. There you go. All right, so. As I mentioned earlier, the rumors say you build your own warlord, right? That there's some kind of warlord thing. So what do you think this will look like? What would you like this to include rules-wise? Assuming this current structure of AOS, what would you want to see this look like? Okay? So Mitch, kick us off.
Well, I'm already building out, and I've already run a couple of events with linked scenarios, and we've seen some of that in the core book, the core rules, and we've already seen scenarios in the books, the mini books that have already been released. They don't show a lot of the escalation in those books. They don't really give you any guidelines on what gains you get for one scenario that really impact the next. But we do see in the core rules something called triumphs, where if you and this is where GW is trying to encourage with Age of Sigmar play, to make it a string of games, where the last game you played, if you won, depending on how well you won, you may have gotten some kind of a benefit for the follow-up game. I'd like to see that fleshed out heavily, and we've already seen some speculation based on the General's Handbook, what the General's Compendium would be. Or am I reversing that? It's the General's Compendium is the old one, and the General's Handbook is the new one.
Correct. Compendium is the old one, Handbook is the new one.
Got it. I'd like to see that go to 11. I'd really like to see the idea that, okay, if you have a warlord, if you have a character that is your general, this is the personality that you're emulating on the table, and he may have his starter army, and based on how you perform, the surviving units, and I'm doing this in an escalation campaign right now, but of course I wish this damn book would come out 3 months earlier so I didn't have to go write this whole thing, but I put a lot of work into it already, and I'm sure that once this is over, if I do it again, which I'm sure I will, I'll just use what's in the General's Compendium and put my own spin on it. But what we're doing is, and I'd love to see some of this, I really would hope that some of this stuff is included, is surviving units have a chance to gain veteran status and gain benefits. It could be that characters may gain items and weapons. Maybe they'll be throwbacks to even 8th edition and previous edition items that we knew and loved with those names, but they could just be simple things like rerolls or pluses to hit, or armors that give you a bonus to your saves, or maybe give you a save versus mortal. Little different benefits for surviving units and heroes and whatnot. I'd also like to see that if a unit gets wiped out or a character gets defeated, very much like Mordheim, disadvantages. But I'd also like to see things that impact the game more than just the territory you're gaining. If the territory you're fighting over is urban, there should be some impact. If it's wilderness, if it's forest, if it's subterranean, I'd like to see that impact the game in the same way that the realms and the times of war and all that stuff is supposed to be impacting Age of Sigmar, because we don't see that played as much. It sometimes that's that one layer that kind of falls out the same way as terrain factors, terrain rules are one of those first things that people kind of just like forget and stop using when they're trying to just remember their war scrolls because they're learning their army, and it complicates things. But I'd love to see more of that kind of stuff. I'd also like to see weather effects. I would love to have an in-depth, much more in-depth way of playing the campaign game. I think we're going to see the progression where you can eventually build your forces. I would love, and I don't think we're going to see this, where it embraces the idea of imbalance. If we've got points, fine. That's a way you can build your structure. But I'd like to see scenarios, whether it's in match play or in narrative play, we can certainly do this in open play, that allows you to take on larger forces and you're the besieged, or the challenge of being able to take an elite force against a huge horde where the points is out of whack. I don't know if we're going to see that. That would be something I'd love to have included.
All right. I like it. Tom, what do you got, buddy?
I like what Mitch had to say, honestly.
Sure.
He had a lot of the points that I was interested in. I want to see new abilities that can change how characters play, commanders play, your warlords play, whether those be sitting on like actual like abilities from experience or whether those be sitting on like items that players gain, or items that characters gain. But more than that, like I think I want a larger campaign system. And what I mean by that is I want to see wins and losses being translated into growing your army and different content. Like, so this is embracing the imbalance. Like, so for the player that is continuing to win in the campaign, they may grow their army faster or not, depending on if they're having to spread out and cover more territory. And so some relationship between like what is getting fielded and your leveling up experience. Not unlike this would be a macro scale of what was happening in Mordheim in a micro scale with the growing of a war band. This is the growing of an actual army. And more than just that, I want it to be more than just a single force. Okay? So what I don't want to see is I have a warlord and I have a bunch of units around him and he just gets stronger and my gains get bigger. Like, that is uninteresting to me. What I want to see is I want to see a warlord with maybe 3 detachments underneath him. He can accompany any one of those detachments. And each of those detachments, depending on what we play and where the encounters are happening on the map, that dictates what the shape of that detachment is. Because maybe if I'm playing an undead, like maybe I have one detachment based on Nephrata and New Lamia, maybe I have one based on the Flesh Eater Court, maybe I have, maybe I have it divided up, and so the shape of that thing is going to look like whatever those things are. Whatever I've decided. And depending on the wins and losses of each, it will grow or shrink those various forces. Because that adds a level of dynamic interaction between, like, not only deploying your forces and moving them around a larger battlefield and claiming territory, but you may need to move to supplement some of your weaker forces. And so having to make those decisions and those things on the ground, I think, would just be fantastic.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, I think of like Malorian ran a campaign. He talked about his narrative thing ongoing. I remember in a video some time ago where he had like 3 different warlords and they had different forces that he could bring and stuff like that. And that's kind of what you're discussing to a point. And so James, by the way, had said, I really want character progression similar to Path to Glory. Well, the rumor is Path to Glory is in there, so I would imagine that's what you're going to see. I'll tell you the number one thing that I want to see. Pride. Maybe I should explain that. I mean pride in your realm, in your faction, in your people. I want to fight for something, okay? And what I mean by that is when I have victories, I want to be bestowed gifts by the leaders of the realm. We've charted them out. We know who's around. We got Sigmar, we got Nagash, we've got Archaon and the Chaos Gods and all these people. They're the bosses are out. They're forces. Okay, I don't want them to take part in the game. I want them to be the lords who bestow upon my general gifts in the form of either items or boons or stuff like that, and make me the pride of my force, my faction, my whatever, my side, right? So that the more I win, I'm fighting for something. And you make that very real by having that connection to the overall lord of who rules. Because you're a great servant, Nagash bestows upon you this extra spell, this extra item, this extra ability, this extra stat. I don't care. It could be a million different mechanical benefits. The point is just couching it in that. Even having, I would love to even see tables like related to the various factions of like how they dispense with their favors and you can incur their wrath, right? Like the chaos gods are fickle, but they value, strength over weakness certainly. But you piss them off, you can get the boot just as easily as you get the boon, right? So these kinds of things I think would be pretty awesome.
I love it.
So
That's
there you
great.
go.
Can you imagine like rising to the point where maybe you could become one of the Mortarks of Nagash, for example?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That sounds amazing.
And in
right?
doing that, you get a chance to unseat Manfred and kill him. Finally kill him.
Perfect.
Wouldn't that be epic?
Everything I want in a campaign. Yeah, so just like, we know who the gods are. We know who the great forces are, right? I want to actually serve them in a real way that's made tangible through the rules of the ongoing campaign. I think that would be incredibly compelling, narratively. Okay. All right, next up. So as mentioned, you were rumored to be able to take territory in the 9 realms. What should this include? Okay, and what would we like to have game to game for this? So Mitch, you kind of touched on this, but hone in specifically when you're taking the territory. Do you want obviously the maps are a little more fungible, so I don't know what that looks like, but what does it look like in your head? What would you like to see? Like for every territory unit you gain in life, you gain something, that kind of thing. Like what do you think?
Are you talking about like resources or something like that?
What's the benefit if I'm taking territory in fire or
there has
metal?
To be a reason. I would like to see. I'd like to see something progress in the way that you see it in Total War. Like for instance, you have to get to in that you have to do research and maybe you have to go and take you have to get this mountainous region to be able to find the Urgold or whatever it is that you need to be able to build out this technology and open up the ability to make the elite unit. Maybe you have to find some source of warpstone, or you have to go into a particular realm and find some kind of resource that allows you to then gain the ability to take maybe a certain monster or war machine. I'd love to like you say, there to be a reason. I think would be a great aspect where it's not just going into a territory and having a fight. It's going into the territory and achieving, like you said, a goal, but gaining the ability to unlock these capabilities for your army as you're developing through the campaign. But of course, as the same thing that Tom said, could be implications in terms of troops. If you're successful, then you may be able to open up additional forces and have an advantage in future games. I would not want to. The pitfall for that is it could get away from you. You could get to a situation where somebody who had many successes in early battles, and then suddenly they're running away with the campaign. So you have to find a way to make it not so overbalanced in that regard that the game suddenly is owned within the first few rounds of the game. I would like to go back to one other thing that I'd like to see. I'd like to see the ability to customize your command abilities. Maybe there's situational command abilities. Maybe if you have a command ability, if you've taken out an enemy hero, you've taken out an enemy general, you've defeated a monster, who knows if there's the ability for you to either tweak or create your own, but to find a command ability that may be non-standard, and you have that as your arsenal. You could pick that in a particular mission. But that's just going back to the previous topic.
No, it's a good idea. I like it as well, absolutely. Yeah, I like all that. Tommy, what do you got? So we're taking some territory. What happens?
Fortifications.
Okay. There you go.
So give some players the option to invest resources into terrain. Okay, and so part of what this would tie into, and I didn't mention previously, in what I would like to envision, because I hadn't, we've talked about it, because I was actually envisioning a project down the road in this area, but I'm just going to throw it out now, because clearly GW watches and listens to our show. The fact, it proves this. So I would love for there to be a degree of when forces come together, a blind man's bluff, okay, for how those forces react to one another. Okay? So, like, you maybe have one of three options: hold your ground, retreat, or charge forward. This is just an example. And depending how each of the forces, so like you choose one, and then you reveal what your tactical thing is, and where those two, or where each of your decisions match on a chart, that determines the type of scenario that you have.
Nice.
So the scenario is actually dictated by the movements of the forces.
Sure. No, I like it.
So then, and so you don't know what you're going to end up, depending on what people have done. Like, you may go charging forward, but if they've done like some type of tactical retreat or whatever, that could actually change the dynamics into an ambush or something like that. Or vice versa, it could be a standstill where your armies don't do anything this turn because both of you held your ground and are just staring at each other across an open field. So just different things that, and so it gets into the psychology of the player, adds a dynamic element to it, and then this is where the fortifications come in. Because those that have built fortifications can trump the situation by that they introduce new narrative scenarios based on those fortifications. So if you've installed a watchtower in a piece of terrain, that adds a different scenario into the mix. So if you hold, you can default to the watchtower scenario or something
Sure.
along those lines.
All right, nice. I like it.
Some dynamic interaction between terrain and the scenarios and stuff like that.
Cool. No, I dig that. I like that a lot. And I'm sure GW would love it. More excuses to buy more of their terrain kits. So hey, seems good, right? All right. So, I like all of those ideas very much. I think what I want to see is and I think this is actually directly stemming from something you said, Mitch. I want to see some treachery. Okay, like the treachery part of Triumph and Treachery, like that one person becoming way more powerful is only a problem if we can't team up.
Yep.
Right. And assuming a campaign isn't happening between two people, like I'm sure that they can, but I think most of the campaigns I played in had 4 or 5 people in them. And so one person starts getting way out ahead. Okay, it's time for an alliance against that person, right? And maybe you've got some rules for some unbalanced games because you both attack that person at the same time. Little coordinated assault. Let's just wreck him, And or conversely, it could just be that multiple attacks back to back to back or something like that, where their resources are strained because you can't bring as many models if you've suffered an attack in X amount of time. Like, there's lots of ways you can govern it rules-wise that don't necessarily result in individual imbalanced games. But just the ability to play that shady treachery game. Let's be honest. The treachery is the fun part of Triumph and Treachery, right?
Absolutely.
So anything that's going to encourage that sort of behavior, I'm all about, because nothing screams like real world battle like just some ridiculous treachery going on. And yeah, I'm all about that. So there you go. That's mine. Okay. So let's see. And again, Mitch, you touched on a few of these, but what other items should be included in the narrative style? Could we draw from games such as Mordenheim? Could we find unique units, grow commanders, units with upgraded stats, experience? I think you touched on a lot of those, Mitch. I like most of your ideas. I love the idea of having veteran units. You mentioned that. I think that's true. I love the idea of injuries. Permanent scars going from game to game. I think that's definitely a good thing.
Especially for heroes.
Well, also, yeah, especially for heroes. But what about a unit that got decimated in a previous game? Maybe they lost one of their bravery points.
So they were reduced by 10%.
You could bring it back, but their morale has been ruined.
Yes. No, absolutely. Yeah, just like a totally weakened bravery, because the unit's shattered, right? Like their morale has been broken. Yeah, 100%. And there's just so many little levers you could flip like that. I would love to see the idea of unique units, maybe even to the point of, and you could do this pretty easily, right? You could combine multiple sort of scrolls together to create unique units, right? Like you could take the rules off of, say, a Great Eagle and combine it with the rules of like a dragon prince and say you've got Griffin riding dragon princes. They have, and you could just say like you've got the Griffins move and save, or the knights save it. Like it would be pretty easy to actually just shove those two things together, right? Like you could actually
use the
build
attacks of the knight.
Yeah,
Use
plus the attacks of
of
evil.
the knight. Yeah, plus the attacks of evil. Yep.
So you mean I could take a giant and have one of the war scrolls for the grots, where they're all kind of mounted on top of the giant, like
Yes.
like that old model from way back in the day?
Yes, they use the Ragnarok goblin rules.
That would be awesome. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yep.
Exactly. Just like I would love to see some crazy rules for just obviously this is not because we're in the narrative thing. We know we're not talking about tournaments, right? We're talking about a game with you and your friends. So we don't need to have these hard restrictions. Like we can open up. We can just take the throttle and open it up to like when you do this stuff, have fun combinations and play around and everybody work together to make these new units and it would be really really easy.
And you don't have to
shove a lot of things together.
You don't have to stay with a single faction either. Like I know that people are envisioning like a Chaos Army or a Destruction Army or whatnot, but like I could imagine a Stormcast / like Undeath combination.
Yeah.
Like there seems to be some of that happening in the narrative, and so I don't see any reason why not. Yeah, the Vigilant Host or whatever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I would just love to see more rules for personalizing not just your experience in the campaign, but your army down to even the individual unit, right? And if you think about the way gear works, like we think of Age of Sigmar as not having gear. I call shenanigans. There is certainly gear. There's just not a unified gear list, right?
Or system of gaining gear.
Right, exactly. Like, but I could say, here's an idea. Ready? Okay. My unit of Tomb Guard, right, are all upgraded after a long many series of fights, and are given new weapons. The stats for those weapons are the Tomb King's monastic, dynastic blade. So all of a sudden, that whole unit's like neg1 rend, d3 damage, 3up, 3up, right? It'd be that easy. Like the same way that the Dracoths and the Star Drake have those shields that bounce, the wounds around, the ones you hate.
It's like, exactly, yeah. I was thinking that. I was thinking the Thunder Shields. Give those to some Iron Breakers.
Absolutely.
Done.
Like, and don't get me wrong. Yes, some of these things are going to result in crazy bonkers units. I agree, right? And I'm not suggesting you start with this thing. I'm suggesting this is what happens after a long road in the campaign to a very special unit after a series of victories, right? That you have this possibility to eventually walk down this road. It seems pretty straightforward to me, honestly. And because we've segmented the world into open, narrative, and matched, right? We can suddenly say, over here, we've got a stricter conception of the way the world works. But over here, who cares? It's the Wild West.
It is the Wild West. I have a thought, though, I'd like to hear your opinion on. In the old world, it was easy to take a map or a segment of the map, very, akin to, Europe or a medieval fantasy type map. We've all seen them, and then carve out territories. This is the Empire. This is the Bretonia nearby. This is Sylvania here, and then those were subdivided into different territories within, and then you can grow from there. Very Total War-ish. How do we do that in the Age of Sigmar world, where it's very much like a galaxy with planets? We're talking about realms. We're talking about realms with elemental themes. It's almost like the D&D spectrum of planes.
Planescape, yeah.
Well,
I've got two answers for you. Do you mind if I go, Tom? I've got two quick ones.
I'm sure it's going to be the same thing. Go ahead.
Probably. All right. Option 1, the battle takes place on a single plane. The plane map looks like the maps in the book. It has named areas. The named areas are what matters and what you take, right? Yeah. The Fountain of Nightmares, the Forest of Haunted Ghosty Ghosts, the Graveyard of Spooky Spooky Time. Like, it doesn't matter.
The Brimstone Peninsula is what you're fighting over.
exactly. Like there are 20 named things, 30 named things on the map. Each named thing gives you some special bonus. That's what this campaign is about. It's about the campaign in the Realm of Fire. Option 1, and probably the most straightforward. Option 2.
And you could make a board for your entire campaign that would map to that type of looking thing.
Yep. Option 2 is you can take anywhere in the mortal realms. Each realm has a certain number of units that can be conquered in it, like let's say 10 conquerable units. Every additional unit you get in that realm gives you an additional benefit of that realm. Controlling like 8 units in the realm of fire gives you access to a bunch of unique fire monsters and fire creatures because you have dominated the realm of fire, right? And at that point, see, it's just kind of this arbitrary unit system. They're not really mapping to a hard map, and even a couple of those units could be still special, calling back to the previous idea, right? Where like there's once you conquer 5, you also gain access to the fiery river of Flamey Burn, right?
Okay.
Whatever.
So I'm gonna raise you one. So I'm going to build on that last one. And so rather than doing that, having every army associated with some realm. Okay? So their home territory is this realm. And you can actually have them, so you could have a series of rotating like mission sites that have like of strategic importance. Maybe they have items, maybe they have relics, like relics. Maybe they have something to do with some ongoing narrative, like a around the world in 80 days type of thing, where everybody's it's like chasing after these things, and these are the flashpoints. And you could also, along with that, invade home realms. So let's say that I'm on the plane of light, and I'm invading fire. Well, some of the other players could move their troops to invade light in order to bite into my resource stuff, bite into my forces, bite into whatever aspect to pull things back off the front lines. And so you could have some kind of combination of like rotating front line and then also like a home world type thing, and decisions are having to be made accordingly.
Like if you're on the Realm of Light, you need to go make allies with dwarves so you can make yourself sunglasses because it's super bright there. Because an entire Realm of Light would be really annoying. Yes. Like those elves must just be nearly blind all the time. Maybe that'll be the faction.
Well, I would say funny story. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what Teclis is, right? Or is that Tyrion? One of them is blind.
One of them is blind. I think Tyrion's blind and Teclis leads him around, right? Is his eyes?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Whatever the case, I'd love to see them all be blind. Wouldn't that be neat if we got all blind elves? Yeah. All right. I like it.
That sounds terrible.
I can't wait for how much you're going to hate whatever elven faction they make. And I know you're going to hate it. It doesn't matter what.
No, I am going to choose to stay positive.
Good for you. Good for you. I look forward to that being wrong.
Because here's the deal. I think there's a pretty good chance that if those elves that get released are likely going to be tied to light, I feel like there's a pretty good chance they're going to be tied to the Phoenix Guard. So, just with all the imagery and all the stuff that's going on there, and I really like Phoenix Guard. So,
sure.
I think I have a window into your relationship. I see that Vince. I think he's nourished by your suffering, Tom.
He is, in fact. Actually, you just seized onto a key aspect of our friendship.
Very true. All right, so. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing about this, I'll say, I think, but here's my final thought on the whole narrative thing. There's no way I expect all of this to happen in one book. Okay, it's 160 pages, some small amount of this is dedicated, some portion of it is dedicated to this concept. I would love to see any of these ideas. But I would love to see a long-term road. As I said, I don't think this is the final campaign book, not even close. This entire release schedule has been predicated around ongoing campaigns, right? I say lean into it, keep giving us more, right? Like I want to see this evolve. I don't care if it's not all in this book. I want to see it happen over books where we get more stuff like that to build our own stories, to tell unique stuff, that kind of thing. So
certainly.
Yeah. And I think
this is just a place to brainstorm.
Yep.
You said 3 books? I think it'll take a couple more than 3.
3, 5, 10. I was just pulling a random.
I don't care if they do 10 books, 12 books. If this is the kind of direction that we would see, look, we don't have to talk about the matched games because that's going to fuel the majority of the play. I think most of us agree, everybody here right now agrees, I'm sure. But that kind of a campaign structure, even if it's a goal to obtain, even if it's something that we're going to be reaching over the course of time, that's the kind of thing that I would dive in with both feet. I mean, it would. I'll dabble in the competitive play. It may even be the dominant portion of the play I play, but I would love to be part of that kind of a campaign.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, I think that brings us to the end of our discussion of this. So, Mitch, any final thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, I know that I've had a lot of conversations with a number of people. I've been on a couple of shows. I'm mostly positive about this. I mean, whatever my reservations are, it's a talking piece. It's just a conversation piece. But I'm very excited about it. There's so many positive things that are coming of this. We cannot diminish how good this is looking forward. If all the conversation that we had about how many source books we would need to get that kind of a campaign structure, well, that's going to need an investment of interest by GW. And the only way they're going to do that is if the community is thriving. So if the community is thriving and we get all those little things that we want, I mean, this is the best time to be part of Age of Sigmar.
Totally agreed. As I said before, we are entering the golden age of wargaming. This is the best it's ever been since I started playing now almost 20 years ago. And so there you go. Tom, final thoughts?
I love it. Some people have given me a hard time about saying that over the last couple of shows that I have been just a negative Nancy regarding AOS and all the releases and everything. And you know what? Like, I love this release. Like, I love everything that's going on here, and not just the points. I welcome the points. I also think some of the point systems like Clash Comp and the South Coast had good systems, and I think other systems are evolving, and so I'm interested in the points. I'm excited for what that's going to do. I'm excited for the people that it's potentially going to bring back in to reconsider a game that I think is a legitimately good game. But I just like everything that's going on. This book is a very compelling book to me, is what I would say.
Yep, absolutely. To return back to our elves on the plane of light, the future is so bright they've got to wear shades. I think it's all upside from here, folks. I mean, really, I'm extremely positive. I like your reaction. The reality is, reserve judgment if you're negative, and if you're positive, be happy and be excited and get into it, man, and share with everybody else. I've seen a lot of positive traction all over on Twitter, on a lot of boards. Sure, there are haters. That's fine. Who cares? This isn't going to make everybody happy. There will be complaints. Find what you like in it and play in that way. That's the underlying theme of what this entire game has been about. That's what this book is clearly about. Keep living that life and enjoy the game that you enjoy, and be positive about it and share what you love with other people, and you will create your own great community. That's what this book is all about. That's what this has been all about so far. There you go. All right. So that brings us to the end. As I said, look forward next week. We're going to do the 9th Age 1.0 Spectacular. Look forward to that. Very excited about that show. Another shameless plug. Don't forget, I do an RPG podcast as well. I'll put a link for that down below. You can check that out. It's super fun. Tom and I recorded an episode. Tom came as a guest star on a recent recording. That won't be out for a little while, but you can start listening now. Subscribe now, and you'll get to hear Tom again. A second dose of Tom in your week. Isn't that exciting?
It's true.
Yeah, there you go. But other than that, as always, we thank you all for watching. We hope you had a good time. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.